Awesome. Thanks so much, Robin, and thank you all for joining us. I've got many different areas across the country, a lot of Midwest, got some the South. I saw Georgia, so glad you can make it. I'm looking out my office window, and I see the sun, and I hope the sun is shining where you are as well. So we are just going to dive in and get started right away. So today we're looking at strategies for engaging students in distance learning. And before we dive into the content, I'd like to get an idea of who's here, who's on the line, what is your role, your grade, your subject, and maybe think about what is your biggest engagement challenge. Do you want to answer that question in the chat box? Or take a look at, I have brought with me, I don't know if you can see this, a mystery box that we're going to kind of look at later on in the webinar. If you want to ask a yes or no question in the chat box to help us identify that, that would be fantastic as well. So I'll give you a minute or two to respond. Is it alive? No, it is not. Is it purple? No, it's not. Yes, engagement issues, students showing up. How do we address that? And we're going to share a lot of strategies on, even if we get them to show up, what keeps them there? What keeps them coming back? Yes, good. Keeping kids engaged while teaching remotely. Yes, turning in blank work and saying it's complete. Absolutely. Yeah. Lack of resources for families. Yep. Yeah, those are definitely all struggles or challenges. Is it a salad? Yes. What is in the mystery box is a salad. All right, so this chat box is going to be going throughout the entire webinar, so feel free to put some questions down, any resources or that. But we're going to go ahead and get started. And it looks like we do have a really good representation of all different grade levels and subject areas. And you'll find today all the strategies I'm going to share really transcend grade level and subject. So it's definitely K-12, all subjects, things that you can use now as you're winding down your school year, but also looking into the fall as well, because we don't know it's going to be like this fall. There's a lot of uncertainty. So a lot of these things can definitely be used in multiple situations. So today we're really going to focus on basically 4 areas for upping the engagement in your classroom. The first we're going to look at is how can we up that surprise element or surprise factor, kind of making it a mystery for our students anytime they engage, whether it's in a virtual session or getting into Google Classroom, where they're not really sure what they're going to expect or going to get. And secondly, we're going to look at strategies on how we can make it connect, how we can create that same type of culture virtually as we do in our classroom. How can we get our kids talking together and creating that classroom environment? Third, strategies for making it fun, upping that fun factor. And fourth, how can we make content that is meaningful for the students in this virtual or distance learning space? Today's webinar is sponsored by Blue Apple. Blue Apple projects in PD engage students, they teach content, and they help make the world a better place. And because you are a webinar viewer or participant, whether it's live or recording, you have an opportunity to receive 20% off your next project just using the code webinar20 at blueappleteacher.org. Refer back to that at the end of the webinar as well. I don't know if this is you. I've struggled with this in person sometimes, right? But virtually, I feel like that is even more of a challenge. Is anyone there? Is anyone out there? I'm sitting here at my screen. I see my webcam. I see my picture on the screen. But what are my students doing? Are they with me or are they not? And sometimes it feels like you are just hearing crickets. So how can we find that same level of engagement, of that connection, of that collaboration that we have in our classrooms and translate that into that virtual space where the students are just as engaged? Well, let's take a look at creating a virtual classroom of mystery, making it a mystery. And I want to let you know that all of the resources I'm going to talk about, all the strategies, and it's going to be very fast-paced because I wanted to share quite a few of them with you, is in that web links from remote learning you see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. It's the first link there. So if you want to open it up right now and follow along, feel free, but it will be available throughout the webinar as well. So the first strategy to kind of create that air of mystery in your classroom is to surprise your students with a guest teacher. Maybe it's another teacher, maybe it's a principal, a family member, an industry expert to teach your class. A couple of resources I also included in the HyperDoc, some websites that I found very helpful is nepris.com. It's a great place to find industry experts to chat with your students. They've also done a great job of transitioning that or providing opportunities for distance learning, realizing that a teacher is not with their students in their class. So they have to find creative ways to get students engaged, whether it's jumping in on a live chat with could be a scientist or an environmental engineer or historian, whatever that industry happens to be. Another great resource, if you are looking for more the science route, is the Skype with Scientists. Same kind of concept. They'll match you up with scientists to do a Q&A with your students, or your students can jump into a live chat with the scientists as well. Co-host here. So another way to up the mystery is to bring a co-host in, and maybe that happens to be a family pet. And your students love to see anything about you when you're bringing in kind of that personal piece of you. You know, you're in your home, kind of sharing that with your students as well. Now, my puppy is not even 2 yet, so she probably wouldn't be the best co-host. She wouldn't last, I can tell you that, for very long. But just letting the kids see that and see a little bit of you is always a good thing. A second strategy is thinking about a surprise virtual field trip. So don't let your students know where you're going to send them, or hype it up a little bit that this is going to be a surprise. But check out Skype in the classroom. It's a great place to find virtual live events. They've done a fantastic job of creating a resource for educators in this remote distance learning. So it gives you all the information you need to know to get your kids so they can get onto Skype, or you can get Microsoft Teams for free for both your students and yourself. And they have even letters if you want to send to parents, so the parents are aware of what their child would be participating in. So you have maybe these mystery events or surprises for your students. Why not hype it up by sending them a personal invite? And that could be taking a Google slide and creating an invitation, and maybe you're just putting it out in your Google Classroom, or you're sending an email to your students. Now, if you have 150 students, it's a little tricky to send a personal invite to each one of your students, but maybe you want to find a few of your students in each one of your classes that hasn't really engaged, hasn't come to the events or come to your office hours, and just sending them a personal note invitation, letting them know that you miss them, and getting them excited to be a part of that. Another strategy for making it a mystery is think about anytime you engage with your students of doing it in a different location. So moving your room, and maybe you have a different space in your house, or maybe even outdoors if you can, where, okay, so she's in her office, that means it is discussion time. She's in the kitchen, that means it's demonstration time. She's on the couch, that means it's reflection time. Kind of tying the room to the activity is another way to approach that. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the mystery box. I asked her to give questions. I don't know if there are any other lingering questions, or if you wanted to ask them in the chat box right now, or if anyone wants to take even just a wild guess with this. But this is something that you can do with your students face-to-face, but it's also very easy to bring in the virtual space. Tara asks, is it edible? It is not edible. Is it a book? It is not a book, although that's a good guess. And a lot of times what I would do in my class is I would just put something in it that would tie to what they were learning that day or possibly the next day. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. And it is a chicken hat. So I'm sure that was a tough one. I don't think that's going to be right up, come up the top of your head there. But we're actually going to look at the chicken hat in a little bit. So I thought I'd put that in the box as well. Okay, so another strategy for upping up or upping that mystery factor is taking a picture, and it could be a picture of the content that you're going to teach, maybe that lesson or in subsequent lessons, and doing a zoom in. And there's a resource in the HyperDot of zoomed in images that you share with your students, and you can have them ask yes or no questions like the mystery box, and they can do some guessing, and then maybe you hold off on kind of showing what that image is until later on in the lesson. Another way you can do that, which I've done here, is you can take an image and you could put boxes, little grids over the image, and as the students engage, or maybe they answer questions, or maybe you roll a die, or whatever it happens to be, you can move some of those squares out, and the students can start guessing what that image is. And I don't know if we have any guesses out there. I will keep going here. Now, the red boxes are boxes that are like, will really give it away as well. A hawk, an owl. Ooh, owl. Yeah. Oh, how would you do that? So what I did is I just did a PowerPoint slide, and I took an image and put it on the slide. And you could do this in Google Slides. And I just took little boxes and put it over them with numbers. And that way you could have that as a template, and then you could just kind of flip out your picture that you have underneath all those boxes if you want. So I will go ahead and reveal all that. That is an owl and an owl pellet. And I would show this right before I'd be actually doing a live dissection, if we're doing virtual, with my students on an owl pellet as we're talking about food webs, food chains. And so this would just kind of get them thinking critically, creatively, and ups that kind of mystery or surprise factor. I'm not quite sure what type of owl that is. I would have to look that up. That's a good question. Here is a zoomed in, so it's kind of the zoomed in kind of strategy there. So any ideas what this might be out there? A cell? Ooh, that's a good guess. SpongeBob, I love that. So I'll just zoom out here. You guys can keep guessing here. Ooh, honey. All right, Diane, good work. That's actually part of a honeycomb. Yes. So again, it's a really quick, really easy way to add a little mystery or surprise to your class. And again, this can be done very easily virtually. So we talked about some strategies for upping kind of the surprise or mystery out in your class. Which of these strategies might you try? And do you have any other strategies for adding kind of that mystery to your virtual classroom? Looks like the zoom in reveal is just edging out the mystery box. There's the winner, but it looks like every one of those is going to be tried there, trying something. Again, these are all strategies that are found on your HyperDoc too, and all the links as well. So thanks for the interactive piece of that and playing along to some of those games. All right. Now, so we talked about strategies for making it a mystery. Now we're going to look at strategies making it connect and trying to emulate as much as possible that connection between students and between the teacher and the students in the virtual space. So the first strategy, and I know that this is much more of, I'll say it, takes a lot more time to do this virtually, and time is very limited when you're meeting with your students on the screen. But we know it's important to give the students an outlet. So setting aside time for students to share, whether it's they're sharing good things for the day or the week, they're doing a show and tell, or sharing a family tradition or something that's unique that they've been doing during this time at home. And maybe, you do this, you randomize it so you're not getting every student each time, because, again, that could take your whole hour or half an hour, whatever the time is you have. Or continue that conversation on a chat in Google Classroom or whatever platform you're using, so the kids have a place to share and they can still connect with each other that way. And this is very simple, and it's something we do when our students come into our classroom, is we greet them by name. Hey, how you doing? And just continuing that in that virtual space, just making sure that anytime a student comes in, whether it's Google Meet or Zoom, Teams, whatever platform you're using, that you're saying hello, and then also, if possible, acknowledging those students that weren't able to join, just kind of keeping that classroom connection. A good rule of thumb whenever we're doing webinar connections is to connect in 10. So every 10 minutes, make sure that you are the students are interacting with a poll, a survey, or a chat. And there's some tools, some links in that hyperdoc to help you do that in those different platforms, but just giving them a break. Because you know that, like in the classroom, if they're doing too much at one time, like my rule was always around 15, 20 minutes, and then we would switch. In the virtual space, it's even shorter. So trying to, plan your activities accordingly. Just a quick tech note. If you are on your phone with this webinar, make sure that your phone is muted, just a little bit there. So thank you very much for that. Another strategy, and this came out of a webinar, our last webinar, a teacher concern was, what about when students aren't comfortable on camera? Now, we've been doing this for quite a few weeks, and there may be some students that just don't like being on the camera. And I can tell you there's a big difference between my 8-year-old child and my 13-year-old child being on the camera. And so, as they get older, they may get a little bit more camera shy. So what can you do about that? Well, just a couple of ways to address that is you can try to scaffold that opportunity for them, where if you know that you have a student that's very reluctant, maybe doing a quick one-on-one chat with them to get them more comfortable with that and trying it that way. And then gradually releasing them into maybe a smaller group, like a smaller chat, possibly using maybe Flipgrid is a great teacher tool. Again, it's in the hyperdoc, but they have great opportunities for you to add stickers. You can change your filters. So like in that image you see of me there, it's a pixel mode, so it kind of pixelates and it's fun, and you can add stickers. Or just be okay with covering the camera. In Flipgrid, you can just put a little piece of construction paper over the camera, or in Google Meet and Teams or Zoom, just doing audio only and being okay with that. And I know in Zoom, they also, in Teams too, they also have virtual backgrounds too. So that's another way to maybe get the students a little bit more comfortable as well, and ups the fun factor. So which of these strategies for having your students kind of connect with each other, the classroom, might you try? And what other ideas or tools do you use to help your students connect with each other? Okay, Diane, you asked a good question. Should you make it mandatory to have the video on? That's obviously a preference. In my experience, and if I know that the student is engaging in the content and, they're being a part of the class, but just not visually, I'm personally okay with that. So again, that's, what your expectations are for your students. So good question. Show and tell. Yeah, show and tell is so powerful. Yeah, and I would argue, my second graders done it, but I know that my 7th or 8th grader, even my high school students would probably love to do show and tell too. They'd roll their eyes, but they'd still probably love it. All right, thank you so much. It looks like Connect in 10 is definitely something that a lot of you are going to try as well. So excellent, thank you. We're going to move on to our next area of strategy. So we talked about making it a surprise, making it connect, and next is making it fun. So kind of increasing that kind of fun factor in our virtual spaces. I'm going old school here, and I know when I first started teaching, I did a lot of, bingo. I did Jeopardy. I did more probably board games or older school games. And then later on in my career, as technology advanced, did more of the Kahoots, Quizlets, Socrative, those type of review games. And I'm sure there's even more out there that I'm not aware of now. But, maybe going back to those old traditional board games and, bringing that in as part of that connect time with your students as well. But having it connect to the content, have dual purpose. So I ran across this, again, it's on the hyperdoc, and I was super excited, and I can't wait to actually try this out, is there's a online tool for playing categories, and you can actually change the categories. You can change the time, and you just hit start or play, and it will randomize the letter for you, and you can have your students play along with you. And so maybe they're doing it in a written journal, or maybe they're doing it in a Google Doc or in a Google form, whatever modality you have them do. But consider bringing a game into your content. Another strategy is to do some demonstrations with your students, and doing those live. When you have your students' attention, they see you in your own environment. They see kind of that personal piece of you. And whether it's a science experiment, a math problem, a writing exercise, maybe it's a song you're singing or a story you're reading aloud to them. They love to see their teachers on camera. So I wanted to share with you just a demonstration I've had my students do this before, the elephant toothpaste. It talks about chemical reactions. But if they don't have those supplies at home, that's a struggle. So instead of having them watch a video on it, why don't you show them? You could really ham it up, hype it up, maybe get out of your comfort zone a little bit and do this for them live. Or what I did is I took it a little bit different direction. I brought in some co-hosts, and then I had my children do that. And anytime the students can see you in your environment and that personal piece of it, it's going to up the engagement, up that fun factor. Next, this is where the chicken hat came in. And that was more of kind of, again, pushing outside of the comfort zone and maybe a little cheesy, but thinking how you can make that fun, that interaction fun by dressing up, connecting to your content, or having props that connect to your content, or maybe you have a different hat. So maybe, this chicken hat is something that I would wear anytime my students would need to reflect on something. And then I would wear a construction hat if I had one, where my students need to make something or do some work. So thinking about bringing those kind of props and dress up into the virtual space. Mentioned this already, is the read aloud. If you could do that for your students live, but another opportunity is bring in that mystery guest or co-host. Maybe it's the superintendent. And, read alouds aren't only for elementary. They can be for secondary as well. I mean, how cool would it be to have maybe your principal read a poem to 12th grade students live, if you could, during your class. That would be pretty awesome. Another resource, these are more younger books, or celebrities or actors and actresses that have read books there on Storyline Online. Great resources in the HyperDoc as well. Kind of bring in up that fun factor. Also a little bit of a mystery too, so you can make that a mystery or surprise for your students. Last, as I came across this, I called it a picture diary, but really it's using the tool ThingLink. And you take a picture and you annotate that picture. And you can annotate that with other pictures or video or words, text. And here's just an example of that there. This is just a picture of a coastline. And each one of those little circles, you can see them, is basically a tag. So students can create tags, and then they can annotate their pictures, and they can create a picture diary. It could be a picture you asked them to do, or one that you've given them choice, and to bring in their own picture to represent the content that you are discussing at that time. Again, that's on the HyperDoc. Okay, so we looked at just a few strategies for upping that fun factor. Which of those might you try? And any other ideas or tools do you use to up that fun? Okay, I love that. I'm just looking at the chat here. Hangman, scavenger hunt, follow the leader using different motions. That's great. Pictionary with vocabulary words. Fantastic. Great. Well, thank you very much. And we're going to move on to our last section here, and it's about making it matter. How do we engage our students in content that matters, in this virtual and distance learning space? So I want to share with you a few resources that hopefully that you're able to use, and even thinking into the fall as well as you're building up your content for fall. One place to start is citizen science, and this is a great way for students to be involved in data collection that's going to be entered into, it could be a nationwide or a global database. And so it's just a very relevant opportunity for students to be a part of data collection that's, solving a problem and helping to make the world a better place. Again, this information is on the HyperDoc. Another strategy and resource I'd like to share is creating authentic projects. Now, PBL can be done virtually, can be done online, and I want to share with you an example of that. We took one of our Blue Apple projects, Prevent the Spread, and we turned it into a virtual learning opportunity. And we've created a teacher guide. Again, this is on the HyperDoc, and also a student edition as well for the students to be able to learn about viruses, the spread of viruses, in particular the coronavirus, and create a public service announcement to share with the world and hopefully to help save lives. And we also have other project ideas, and we at Blue Apple, and I'm going to share with you right at the end, an opportunity if you've got some ideas, and we'd love to brainstorm with you and help you out if you're not sure how to turn that into an authentic experience into a virtual learning experience for your students. We'd love to be a part of that and help you out with that. I know I'm running low on time, so I want to make sure I get through all of these here. So choice boards, I know that these are not novel. This is not groundbreaking. These have been around for a long time, helping with differentiation. But anytime you have the students that have choice, you're increasing student agency and ownership in their work. And on the HyperDoc, I've included a teacher's that I came across very awesome resource templates for creating interactive. This is using Google Slides choice board, and then also a template for a Google Doc choice board. So please check that out if you're interested in that. Another opportunity for choice is just asking them, polling them, surveying them, what they're interested in, and also surveying them to see how they're doing. A weekly self-assessment is a great idea to check in on your students to see how you're doing, not only with the content, but also with the whole distance learning and how are they, dealing with that and handling that, and how does that impact or inform your, future instruction or engagements. Digital badges. Last webinar, someone had asked, how do we get students to turn in? Or in this webinar, they're just turning in blank sheets of paper, to Google Classroom, just turning it in blank. Well, one way to possibly incentivize is through digital badging. There's an extension to Google Sheets that will push out digital badges to your students. You can make a big deal about it, put it in Google Classroom, let everyone know, hey, John just got his environmentalist badge. Congratulate John on that, and really, make it a celebration. And I threw together another resource in there. I found a teacher that is using badging, and she's using Canva to make the badge, and she puts them in her Google Classroom and then sends them out to her students that way. So that's another resource to look at as well if you're interested in that. And we know that Zoom fatigue is real. We're on screens all the time as teachers. We know our students are also on screens, and so thinking about ways to get them off their screen, so providing those no screen options in their choice boards, and also for yourself too. And lastly, here's that support or help I was mentioning. If you want to brainstorm some ideas, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you. And maybe you have a couple more weeks of content and you want some help on how to make a relevant, authentic learning experience with that. We can help you do that. Or as you look to the fall, we can help you brainstorm and do that as well. So please reach out to us in the teleteach. And most of all, please give yourself grace. You are doing amazing things in amazing times. And we just appreciate everything you're doing as an educational warrior on the front lines and, keeping our students safe. All right. So before I sign off, I know I have a couple minutes over, and so thank you for staying with me. But we'd love to honor the, any questions or burning ideas for next time. Our next webinar is June 17th, and it's all about finding ways to recover, recharge, and restore your passion for teaching. So it's on June 17th. I'll be sending out an email about that, a reminder, but also you can take a look at it on our website as well. But if you have any other ideas to help us so we can help you, we'd love to incorporate that into our upcoming webinars as well. And if you like what you heard, please let your administrator know about us. We'd love to come to your school and meet with you and your teachers. And we have a whole catalog of opportunities for professional development. We can customize those to help you, transform your class this fall. So please reach out to us at blueappleteacher.org, and all of that information is there. You'll get a recording of this. So if you'd like to pass on the recording to your administrator as well, and all this information will be there. But we'd love to engage with you and your teachers. And just a reminder, I will send us out an email, but there is that webinar code, webinar 20, for a Blue Apple project. If you go blueappleteacher.org, that's there. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And if you run into any questions or you'd love to reach out, please feel free to. My email is there. And again, all the resources are in that hyperdoc. Hope you all have a wonderful end to your school year, and thank you all for everything you do every day. Bye.